What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Viall Files. I am your host, Nick. Welcome. Glad to have you back. Thanks for listening. Joined by the lovely and wonderful humans, Allie and Amanda. How are you ladies doing today?
There is a shocking update. My cousin asked me to be a bridesmaid in her wedding. I did not think I was going to make it. I was a total wild card pick, was not a divisional winner, and I'm very excited.
So you are glad?
Yeah, I'm very glad. I just she has a lot of really good friends, both from college and law school, and her fiance has a bunch of sisters. So I just I didn't think, not in any bad way, but didn't think I was going to make the bridal party cut, was all good with it.
Great.
And then shockingly, I feel it was when a 7-9 team makes the playoffs. It was
nicely done. And do you suspect that this wedding will have a lot of singles?
Oh, I don't. It's in August. So I don't know. In my gut, I feel I'm of 2022.
Okay, yeah.
So in my gut, I'm I think I'm gonna be
in a relationship.
Either in a relationship or seriously mentally occupied with someone. Because I had a hot girl summer this year, and I don't think life can sustain 2 hot girl summers in a row.
Why not? I don't know.
My own balance. I think when I hot girl summer hard.
I had a hot girl summer for about 6 years, and it was great.
And that's why we have the STD check.
We have a great episode for you. The hysterical and wonderful guys from Veep, Matt Walsh and Tim Simons, is with us to talk about life, their experiences on Veep. You know them from popular movies like Old School and The Hangover. So I won't talk much more about it because we talk about it in the episode. You're going to love it. Before we do, I just want to let you know that the voting for the Ease People Choice Awards is starting today, and I can't thank you guys enough for submitting us for previous People Choice Awards. This one means a lot to me, and if you guys would take the time, I would really appreciate you guys voting for the Viall Files for Top Podcast. The link to vote is in our show descriptions. You can vote I think up to 25 times a day. Tell your friends. I really can't thank you enough. This show means so much to me. We put a lot of work into it, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So if you guys want to take the time to vote, it would so mean a lot. And thank you so much again for listening and voting. And I'm going to bug this shit out of you. So please, just do it.
This is your warning.
No, please. It really would mean a lot. And thank you so much in advance. So let's get to Tim and Matt. Tim, Matt, welcome.
Hey, man.
So good to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm excited. Matt, you must get this a lot, but the first thing I ever did when I moved to LA was take a class at UCB.
Oh my gosh. You're the second person who's talked about this. Really? What level? How far?
Oh,
just one?
Just one.
Okay.
And then I went over to Groundlings because one of the instructors there I knew, so I just did a little bit of both.
Did you complete Groundlings?
I did the first 2.
First 2?
Yeah. But because I also I wasn't very good at character work, and I feel like I probably needed some work on that.
Yeah.
I liked UCB a little bit better.
UCB's cooler. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Also, yeah.
Come on. I have to say that.
Who the fuck
are we talking about?
It was the first thing I did in terms of taking a class or working on any type of acting or improv.
Yeah, it's good entree.
Who was your teacher?
You would probably know. I forget her. This was 6 years ago. She is in a lot of State Farm commercials. No, or not Allstate commercials. She plays a mom in Allstate. Wonderful teacher. She was great. She'd had a nice run on some Allstate commercials.
Oh,
She played a
awesome.
mom. I forget.
Okay.
Anyway, she was lovely. I know you were a founder of UCB.
True.
How did that all start?
We were a sketch group in Chicago. We moved here in 96. New York. We moved to New York in 96 and then opened a theater in 98. And we had a TV show for 2 years, but the theater lived on. And then the people who we had taught when we landed in New York started teaching. And then we had a theater here in LA. So it grew that way.
Wow. And then is it also in Chicago, in New York? Just in LA?
What do you have against Chicago?
Nothing. Chicago's great. I mean, I don't know.
You say that in your words,
there.
but your actions speak differently.
I love Chicago. It's one of my favorites. I love Milwaukee too. I'm not a Packer fan though. We talked about it a little bit. What's going on with Aaron Rodgers would be my only question. Describe
I
that
don't
guy's
know,
season.
but aren't
or
you
what-
a Cal Bear fan?
I'm a real Bears fan, but as someone who's watched the meltdown of Aaron Rodgers preseason,
Yeah.
right? He was fighting with ownership, which is basically the only. What's cool about Green Bay? They're the only team owned by the town, which is very cool.
But are they actually owned by the town or just like,
Yeah, they're very-
but
They're
they don't
shareholders or whatever.
but they don't like actually have a voice, do they?
Well, that's the thing. The city owns it. It's like a trust. It's like
Yeah.
a not.
Oh, okay.
it's-
but there's a
it's-
board, I would assume,
There's
that's
a board.
involved in decision
It's
making.
essentially like a not-for-profit, but they make
Tons
a
of
huge
money.
profit,
Sure.
a ton of money. It's owned by the city.
Okay.
You're right, though.
Who gets the
They do
money?
this nostalgic thing where they like sell pieces of paper to like diehard fans
Yeah.
and call them owners, but they absolutely have no say. They roll out the carpet like once a year and have a shareholders meeting to like update them on things that they're doing.
we
of
we
which
still
they
have your
no-
money.
We still have your money. Thanks for the
Thank you
spending-
for all that
So
money.
how many owners are there? Is there just one guy that owns it now, or is it still owned by like hundreds of people?
Well, I think it's just owned by like the city or the trust. It's I don't know the actual logistics. I do know the fans who call themselves owners are owners in name, not in actual reality.
Do they give money to the town? Like is the town able to spend money on improvements, or do the improvements only go to the football team?
Well, I think the economy in Green Bay is heavily reliant on the Green Bay Packers. So I think there's some.
The pop-up living room bars are amazing. People who live by that stadium and just like invite you into their home for beer or their yard.
Incredible.
It's amazing. It's like
Yes.
a college weekend. It's really
very
fun.
much so. Have you been to a game there?
I haven't. No.
I've been to
It's
yeah.
a life. It's
It's
if
cool.
you're a like a.
I saw the
You don't even have to be a
Bears there.
sports fan. It's a very
It's
cool
historic
atmosphere.
venue,
yeah.
And they will invite you. They're very friendly, invite you in their home. I remember going to a Packer game once, and I'm sitting next to a guy. He's like, "We're having a party at our house," like after the game, and they'll just invite you. And it's a small. It's very much like a college town. It feels like a very small town. And all of a sudden, in someone's backyard, there's this massive stadium.
Kegger,
Does it
whatever,
have the
bar.
same? We went when we were over in London. We were shooting like in the third season. We shot an episode over there, and we went to a Tottenham game at the old White Hart Lane.
Yes.
We went with Jay Feather,
Yes.
and
Addison brought us.
Addison was there. But that all does it have the same sort of feeling as that of like these old football stadiums, like your soccer stadiums in neighborhoods in
No,
London?
it felt
There's just sort of like your house, like the little stone houses across the street from White Hart Lane.
Yeah, they're not
Yeah.
stone, but yes.
But it has that sort of feeling to it.
Yes, it's like, what is this house doing? In like, there's the parking lot of the stadium, and then there's these little tiny houses, and it does feel misplaced. Like, does the stadium belong here, or does the house belong here? Because a lot of stadiums are in cities now,
Yeah.
or outside of,
Yeah.
like just outside of the city, kind of like in this kind of vast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Parking lot.
SoFi Stadium here is just a behemoth, behemoth.
Yeah, you fly over it, and it's kind of in this kind of industrial area
Yeah.
Yeah.
where Lambeau Field is just it's like thrown in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's cool. Let's
and
go.
like a suburban. I was there many years ago, but it felt like a suburban neighborhood. It wasn't like too city feeling. It still
no.
felt suburban. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yards.
yeah, totally,
yeah.
And mowing your lawn. And,
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Should
it's
we
wild.
go? Is the game in Green Bay?
No, it's in
It's
Chicago.
It's in Soldier,
Oh,
So
Soldier
what is
Field
your
this
hot take on Aaron Rodgers? I hate to put you on the spot.
It's
Like,
okay.
What's going on with him?
week? As a diehard Packer fan, I am team first and foremost. I'm
No
for
one's
the Packers.
questioning your loyalty to
I
the
just
Packers.
want to.
You don't have to get defensive.
I
No
used
one's
to-
questioning. You can harsh on Aaron Rodgers a little bit.
I think he's really good. I think he's a petty person. I think sometimes his greatness is a result of maybe his pettiness as a human being, but as a competitor, I think it serves him well. I think
I'm not a
fans-
fan, but it kind of sounds like
wait a
people.
minute. I want to hold on. But so what's going to happen? Is he going to leave after this year? What do you think's going
I
to happen?
think betting money is he's gone.
He's gone. And he burned bridges with the. Does he communicate with the whoever?
I think so. I think media overplays a little bit,
Okay.
but I also think there's clearly something there, and they did draft a quarterback, and he went about it in a way I just didn't understand.
Right.
Like if you're, I
Right.
respect Tom Brady more than I want to respect Tom Brady as a result of how Tom Brady has gone about his career both on the field and off the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I sometimes, as smart as Aaron Rodgers seems to be, he makes decisions that I think are to his detriment as in terms of his legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he cares very much about his legacy. And sometimes I'm always like, I think you're being too petty because I think you're not playing the long game with how people are going to perceive you. I care less about his legacy than I did a year ago, if that makes sense.
Isn't the book on him kind of that like people that used to play with him don't really speak of him well as a leader?
I actually think he's unfairly criticized there.
For that.
He's not Brett Favre. He's not an affable, like, good old boy. I think he's an introvert. And I think an introvert in that world doesn't necessarily go over as well. I think he's unique and different. I think for a lot of people, they're expecting one thing and they get another.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yes, there's a lot of people who he might rub the wrong way, but I think there's a lot of teammates that really like him.
Great quarterback. No doubt. Lights out. Amazing quarterback.
And I've met people who know him and met him, and they're like, yeah, he's a interesting guy. Anything from like weird or interesting to like, he's not your good old boy quarterback that I think a lot of people are used to liking.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Okay.
But better than Jay Cutler, both as a person.
Well, that's not comparing much. Career-wise, statistics, yes.
Or outside of career.
But similar, interesting, you bring up Jay Cutler, because similar bad impression syndrome, like similar inability to like engender any sort of affable or connection to a city, like in a way, like I think Chicago embraced Cutler, and he was one of the best quarterbacks we had in a long time, and we had a passing game for a couple of years, but teammates seemingly not fans of his at all.
The difference between Cutler and Rodgers, though, is I don't think Cutler gives a fuck if people like him at all. In fact, I think he embraces it. I heard a story about Jay Cutler one time.
Is it the don't care?
Yes, I don't fucking care. And I think he means it.
Yeah.
I think Aaron Rodgers very much cares what people think. Yeah. And I think he does a lot of things to try to get people to like him. And they're nice things and generous things. I think it's
like State Farm commercials.
Sure, State Farm commercials. But he steps in it once in a while because I think his ego gets a little out of control.
This is not a hot take. But I think also Jay Cutler's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Oh,
right? And I also think, think Aaron Rodgers is a piece of shit.
I would agree. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Rodgers, I think he gets unfairly criticized sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes he just, I think he has a type of personality that's not easy for everyone to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Were you rooting for him and Olivia Munn to work out ever?
I didn't care.
You didn't care. You didn't care.
Again, this will go, we are keeping track of this and whether or not this is like you're a true fan.
Yeah, I don't care. Well, I as a diehard sports fan, when I got into adulthood, I recognized these are people, but I don't want to see them as people. I just want to see them as little digital players on a field that I don't want to think about their personal lives.
You're sort of tap dancing here a little bit, but we're going to let you off the hook. You don't want to go hard at Aaron.
What do you think about Aaron Rodgers?
We're a guest in your house right now.
I think he's an amazing quarterback, and I think like the prediction for the game is like if the Packers get the ball in the last 2 minutes, they're probably going to win. Seemingly, that's what he does, even at home. But we'll see because the defense is really good. So he's a great quarterback. Like, who cares? Like, I agree, he's a great quarterback. It's just good to talk about stuff.
Are you
like
excited
that.
about Justin Fields?
Yeah, he was a little dinged up. I saw him play in Vegas. We saw him play the Raiders in Vegas.
You went to that
Gruden's
game?
last game, weirdly.
Yeah.
Famously good guy John Gruden, his last game.
Noom. Hey, be your best self and get the help from Noom. We love Noom. It's been a friend of the show for some time because they are changing people's lives for the better. Whatever your health goals are, whatever it is, whether you want to gain weight, lose weight, just eat right, be healthier, feel better on the inside, have more energy, sleep better, Noom can help you get there. Just 10 minutes a day. Noom is based in science and built by psychologists. Noom doesn't give you rules, but instead teaches you how to think, so you can accomplish your personal health goals, stick with them long term, and get healthy for good. I love Noom. It's helping me maintain, for me in my life, I just want to kind of maintain my current health, and Noom has really helped me do that because there's so many temptations and ways to cheat and get off track, and Noom has really helped me maintain course, and I really appreciate it. Everyone's busy, and that's why Noom doesn't demand much of your time. It only takes about 10 minutes a day. The best thing about Noom is that it's habit-based and helps you make healthier habits over time. over 80% of Noomers finish the program, and over 60% have stuck with their goals for at least a year. There is science to getting healthier, and it's called Noom. Sign up for your trial today at Noom, Noom.com/Viall. Learn how to get healthy with Noom. Sign up for your trial today at Noom, Noom.com/Viall.
But we saw them beat the Raiders, and that was fun. And so the defense is pretty good. So we'll see what happens. But
I was trying to Google the Bears-Packers spread, and it auto-corrected. 4.5? Oh, great. Okay. Well, it auto-corrected to Bears on knees spread, and a bunch of stuff came up that is not... It's not appropriate. That I had to back out real quick. So 4.5 is the line Packers, right?
Yeah.
Packers are favored in
at Soldier
Chicago.
Field. So it would be then 7.5 if it was at Lambeau, I think is
probably
usually
touchdown.
It's like a 3-point home field advantage.
Yeah.
I'm sure my audience of women are super interested in the spread of the Packers Bears game. I am.
It's
been great being here. I feel like we've really
comfortable
covered it,
living room conversation. Certainly,
that's what we try to do.
But that's it, right?
Is your audience a lot of women?
We were just here to talk about the Bears-Packers spread.
No.
Sorry, ladies.
No, I love it. I sometimes,
sports.
we had a wonderful guest last week, Remy Bader. We talked about fashion halls and design. So for me, this is.
It ebbs and flows.
It's great.
Yeah.
I like to mix it up and challenge my audience to think outside the box. This way, there's a lot of women sports fans, and sometimes, even if you're not sports fans, it's nice to drop some knowledge with your boyfriend or her husband.
You're educating them.
Talk about the spread. And
just ladies, if you want to learn about the Bears, just check out a guy named Roquan Smith. He's a beast of a linebacker. He's a phenomenal, might be defensive player of the year. Just phenomenal.
Is he having a good year?
And he's a giant man. And he plays tough as nails, and he's coming into his own. So he's a big leader. So Chicago has their linebackers.
They always do.
I feel like, last year we didn't, and this year we do. And then on the Green Bay side, Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, one of the biggest, passing teams in the NFL, duos. So it'll be interesting. I'm just giving that to the ladies.
Yeah, they appreciate it. You guys have your new podcast out. Where you rewatch Veep, and obviously you guys were on that for the entirety of the show, 7 seasons. And it's a really fascinating concept that you guys are doing. Obviously, people have been recapping popular shows before, but with your podcast and Veep, it's very much embedded into today's culture, or certainly when it was on. And watching your first episode on your podcast, you talked about how I thought it was really interesting. A lot of your writers would go to DC and try to find out what's really going on in DC and have it be real world. And I'm assuming you guys spent a lot of time then, and even now that you're recapping, thinking about, how would the show cover certain things or press-worthy things that are going on in the world today? And do you sometimes, for that reason, wish the show was still going on, or to think about how the show would talk about certain concepts and topics, or in a divisive world that we're in, are you thankful? Hey, you know what? I'm glad we're out of this.
I'm actually, for a few different reasons, I am glad it's over. I mean, I think that it went out at the right time, just for the amount of time that we had spent there. It felt maybe like leaving a moment too early rather than a moment too late. So
Tim, much like Aaron Rodgers, burned some bridges at Veep.
I burned some bridges.
He's kind of surly. He cares what people think. He is a good person, but his first impressions, sometimes he leaves the room and he doesn't resolve what he created. You know what I mean? And he's unaware of it.
Sometimes my former teammates or co-stars might describe me not as a leader, or I might be unfairly criticized for that.
Now, your character, or you as the person, or both?
Me as the person, just Tim Simons.
Because ironically, your character was someone who didn't give a shit about what people thought, or it seemingly like.
Yeah. Was not particularly worried. As long as he had power, he didn't care. Yeah. But I feel like the show went out a moment too early rather than a moment too late. And to be honest, I think the more and more we get into the current political climate, that you can't satirize it. The show became a little bit more of a blunt instrument rather than a scalpel as it went along, because that was the only tool you had to fight how ridiculous the reality became.
Yeah.
So I actually don't envy anybody that's trying to do political satire
It's
right now
tough.
because it is beyond parody.
Like, how would Veep handle things like cancel culture, do you think? Like, how would it discuss
They touched it a little bit where Selena, I think in the last season, went back to Smith College, and weren't there like protesters?
That's right, yeah.
For something. But they didn't go into it deep. But I don't know. I don't know how you would approach. You'd put Selena at the center of it, and she would do something dirty to save the day.
She would try to get somebody else canceled just to like take over. She would like leak a story about somebody else so that person would take all the heat to get herself uncanceled.
Did you guys find yourselves to become more political or less political as a part of being a part of that cast and talking about politics a lot?
I personally became more educated in politics through the show. It was a great window into, I got to meet several historic, press secretaries who work for historic presidents, obviously. And we got access to the White House, and we got access to like staffers and like chiefs of staff, like really bright people or seasoned veterans. And then having people on set like Frank Rich, or like there's like these minds, Arm and obviously Dave Mandel, these people who are just political geniuses and also comedy geniuses in a way. And so I felt very enriched by the process. So I think I became more informed completely by the process. I wasn't really apolitical. I was like averagely political, and now I'm a little more educated, I'd say.
What about you?
I would say the same. I was not a great high school student, so a lot of this in a way was like a civics class for me, like kind of learning about like a lot of the minutia about how the government worked generally.
Tim didn't know there were 50 states.
I did not know that.
Until Veep.
I was thinking like
Veep,
solid,
right?
Yeah, no, like solid.
You saw 50 chairs in the Senate, or 100 chairs in the Senate.
I was like, why are there 4 extra?
It's like, wait, I thought there was 13 continents.
Alaska and Hawaii was what he didn't know about.
So I definitely like learned a lot more about it, but I also like, I was always somebody that was I was not apolitical before, but I do also feel like you get to see, you get behind the scenes a little bit and you start to like, it demystifies some of it. And there are times where I like recognize, like, even if I am aligned with a political party, that like sometimes I am being spun by my own party. And like, you kind of like look for the thing behind the thing, rather than just sort of like blindly saying like, oh, like, well, why are they, you know what? I don't know. Like I got a little bit more cynical. But also, I feel like I did learn a lot about it.
And it's also like the seasoned political minds that say we were exposed to. Their ability is to go like, do you think, you could ask them, do you think this bill will pass? And they're like, no, what's going to happen is this. They can like kind of tell you in a predictive way, generally how something, because the news, obviously when it comes at you, it's like overwhelming. And then obviously more days go by, so you get more information around the issue. And so then, you can react a little more educated, but people who like follow politics forever, they can really read the tea leaves. And that's what's, I think, a smart mind is like, they can kind of see how something plays out.
I like hearing stuff because when I watch Veep, or even in a different way, House of Cards, when they try to show like an insider's point of view of the politics, and right now, especially now when you watch the news or all the different outlets and platforms that talk about politics, the divisiveness and how angry it is. And then you watch some of these other shows that behind the scenes, and they humanize in a lot of ways politicians and things like that. And I find it a little bit more calming to be like, but these probably are people, and the jokes or how they make, you guys like would tease each other or make fun of yourselves or the characters. And I found that to be, because when this isn't a political show at all, and I've, as far as politics, when I was younger, I was more into it. Now it's just more, I find it to be exhausting and disheartening, and just for all those reasons. And when I would watch Veep, it was just more, it made me think these people are more human. When you would talk about, it made me wish that you would hear more of the human side, or just the honesty, I think, which all people want from their politicians. Not the perception of honesty, like when a Trump who's like, he tells you what he wants. It's like, sure. But it would be nice to say, cut the bullshit. Here's what's going to happen. Let's not waste our time. But there's a theatrics when it comes to politics. And it was fun for me to watch Veep and peel some of that back.
Yeah.
And found that to be insightful.
I always like the fact that like a politician in hearing that would not think, oh, I need to tell them more honestly what I believe. They would just think, I need to find a way to fake being more honest about something I don't believe. Like they wouldn't hear that and think like, wow, I should be more authentic. They'd be like, wow, I have to figure out a way to pretend to be more authentic.
I'm not coming off as honest enough.
Yes,
I'm
not coming off as honest enough.
How do I sound honest?
How can I come off more honest? Yeah.
Did you guys ever have conversations with the people you got to meet about why they would think that way as opposed to doing it a certain
super
more
powerful
way?
people? I don't think I've never like sat down with Obama or somebody like that. I've never met super powerful people, but the staffers, in some ways what I liked about Veep was its timeless truths. Like there's human beings trying to administer and execute laws, and there's egomaniacs and power hungry bastards at the top of it. And you're serving those people. And sometimes you can squeak something through that maybe helps your town or your state or whatever. But that's the game. But that's in some ways held true for like all of politics, at least in like, say, democratic America in a way. So I don't know. I like the grand truth of it. You don't know her party ever, it's not like painting one side against the other. It's sort of, at least in its beginning stage, it's not painting anything really. So I like that about Veep. And
that was great because it was more inclusive that way.
There is something.
And it's a bigger truth, I think, in a way. Like obviously you can go deeper on that. And obviously the show reflected current politics, and it was an amalgam of like contemporary issues. And obviously now doing a show where she tweets is not relevant anymore. Like, so it has to be dialed into what's happening now in a way, in an honest way.
Tim, you were saying?
No, I was just thinking about like in talking to people out there, like there was that thing of like, it wasn't really a part of the conversation. Like, oh, should we be more honest? I think it was really just like, maybe it was just a cynical time, but it was just sort of like, what is the value of actually telling the truth? Like everybody knows there is no value in telling the truth. I don't know. Does that make sense? There is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe there isn't. I don't know.
There kind of isn't at that level. Like there is no value. Like, what are you going to get out of telling the truth to somebody at that level? Like, you're just going to lose your job. Like it doesn't matter that. Like, but I guess like we are now living in like this sort of hyper realized version of that, where you think like, where we think about like, oh, well, how is somebody going to get away with saying that Donald Trump did a great job handling COVID, which was very dangerous, and also denying that COVID is dangerous. You're like, wow, how could they possibly put those two things together? Well, now all they have to do is just do both of those things, and it doesn't matter. So like there is no value. There is no value in telling the truth.
That's scary.
And they are just like, like they get.
Well, it seems like the simple value in telling the truth is you can keep your story straight. Like, it's almost simpler
like that's
in a practical,
yeah.
But you're right. Like human beings being utilitarian animals, like the path of least resistance, avoid pain, seek pleasure. Like we're sort of driven by some of that. So like in a world where like you have to keep your lies straight, it is sort of easier to just keep it real, I think. And there's a version of like these dynamic politicians. I don't know, people make fun of me, but like I think Obama in some ways was a real deal. Like I know he had to play the game and stuff, but a guy like that comes in the room and he does have a dream and he does have hope. I don't know if that's all manufactured and baloney. Like I think he believes it, and then maybe it got beaten out of him after 8 years. But I do think like, and obviously the machine preys on those people in some way because it's like, oh my God, we got our guy. We can still make money or what, you know what I mean? Like, so people attach to those real deal people, and that's where like corruption can happen. But I do believe that in a truthful way, like when we met, we're such name droppers. We got to do this ridiculous thing in France we met James Carville and did a panel with James Carville, like right in the south of France, like Cannes. And it was amazing. And I remember he, of course, just regaled us with his stories about politics. And he said, it's either like message or presentation. He's like, I'm a message guy. Like, what's your message? Like, what are you saying? As opposed to the presentation. Like, what does it look like? What's the shine of it? What's maybe perhaps the slickness of it? But what are you substantively saying? So you can approach it that way. I'm not saying you always succeed, but I still think you can approach it that way.
But yeah, sometimes trying to tell the truth is incredibly exhausting in certain aspects. And I think people give up sometimes on that.
I'm just saying fewer lies. I'm not like being a Pollyanna about it, but I think fewer lies is probably easier to navigate.
I think that holds true day to day for most people, but I do think that politicians now, it doesn't matter. Like a lot about the show was like here, oh no, we talked out of both sides of our mouth, and now it's like like that is the political reality has changed, where it's just like, right. Oh yeah, no, we talk out of both sides of our mouth now. We don't even have to try to hide it. We told you one thing, we told this person the other thing, and that doesn't.
Don't believe what they want to believe.
But they're both true.
Yeah.
They're both true. It doesn't matter.
Hey, you met James Carville did you get to meet him on Old School? Because
I don't know if I was there that day. I guess I probably didn't.
I love James Carville.
Yeah.
My grandfather was born in Algiers, so I have a big thing for anybody from New Orleans.
Oh.
I used to watch him in college, and when he was on, was it Crossfire? Was he on that with Tucker?
Oof.
Yeah, he was. You're right.
Famously wonderful guy, Tucker Carlson.
Him and John Gruden will have a show coming up. I'm sure. You heard it here first.
Oh, Jesus.
They'll get paid $40 million a year each to talk about how crazy it was to be canceled and how nobody can hear them anymore.
They don't have a platform.
They don't have a platform because they got canceled.
On Veep, kind of piggybacking on what we were talking about before, like I was catching up and rewatching some episodes, and there was a line how all the administrators were the one. I think the line was, it'd be easy to run the country without the president, or have to dealing with him, but this is the world we live in, and it was the people behind the scenes who are really running things in the country. How much of that do you think is satire, or how much truth do you think is in lines like that when it comes to, from what you guys learned both on the set and talking to people in politics? I listened to it. I was just like, I wonder how much that is true.
Well, I mean, there is that. I mean, like, I think back to a story about like healthcare getting passed when Obama was in, and like it just came down to, there were like some congressional holdouts, and what it really came down to was like Obama's not doing all the work. He's not writing the bill. Like, he's not crunching numbers. But like at some point it wasn't going to pass, and we heard a story about how at one point there was a meeting, and out of nowhere, Barack Obama walked in the room and was like, guess what? This is happening. This is happening, and you need to get on board. Otherwise, here are going to be the consequences for you as politicians. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of what it became like. So you ultimately, I do think that you need somebody that has that kind of, like, to be able to get that many people going in the right direction, you do need to have a strong leader.
Yeah.
You do need to have someone who actually takes responsibility and is like, I'm going to lead us through this. I do think you need that person.
Yeah.
But like putting your name on it, so to speak, and quarterbacking it.
Yeah. Connect. You have to connect with people. You don't just have to have good passing ratio. You have to be a human being in the huddle. And
I mean, you can't have teammates coming out later and saying you weren't a great leader. If you're coming
off like Jay Cutler, then you need to do some work. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Whoever's listening to your podcast,
you have to care.
Famously
Aaron,
wonderful guy.
If you're listening,
Jay Cutler.
If you're coming off a little bit like Jay Cutler, then you need to look in the mirror and you need to say, like, what can I do to understand myself a little better? Because I don't want that.
If Jay Cutler listens to this podcast, I want him to look in the mirror and say, why am I a piece of shit? And then just go from there. Figure out why.
Is there any part of you that is someone who wants to be liked, envies the people like a Jay Cutler, what's the balance between not caring what people think? Because there's a lot of truth to what other people think of you is none of your business, but at the same time having the moral compass to, like, be kind and courteous and like it's all one thing to not care what people think about you as opposed to taking advantage of the gifts you're given and just being miserable to be around.
I think there's too high I don't know. I mean, like, you have to have, I mean, he has a lot of money, so he can do that. Like, he has fuck you money, so he can be a little bit like fuck you. But I do think that there is ultimately a cost to living like that. Like, I don't care what you think. Yeah.
Yeah, or is it like bipolar disorder or something? Like, who knows? But like, there is a cost to that, and ultimately, people can only be who they are. Like, at some point, like, I don't know how much people can change. It's you're an adult. That's who they are.
Do you think that with fame and being in the public eye, you have had to close off a little bit more, or you've become more empathetic to people around you?
I am not famous, but I am recognizable. And so I have become more empathetic to people who are in the public eye in that way of like, everybody assumes that that's something they want until it happens. And it's like, oh, that could be bad. So like, I am empathetic, but before where I would just be like, whatever, stop whining. You get to do this thing that everybody wants to do. Now that if that makes sense, like I am more empathetic to people that are in the public eye in a huge way.
Yeah. And I like Tim, I'm not famous, but I am recognizable, I'd say. But I do have sympathy for people who are under constant scrutiny or, just judgment or harsh.
Yeah.
Obviously, in the social media world, they're being judged or I don't know. It must be brutal. So I don't wish that on necessarily anyone. Although some people bring it on themselves, like they want that notoriety and they want to be the public conversation like constantly. And it's like, good luck.
Yeah.
Because then you lose, or they maybe they're laughing all the way to the bank. So whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But to me, it's like you do lose, there's your work life or your creative life, and then there's your life. Like, I think you do want to preserve a little bit of like sanity or something. Like, and you don't want to give it all away. You want to have like a stable little thing that you can just chill out. And you don't have, nobody's expecting anything from you.
It's not a competition, but you're more famous than I am. It's not a competition. We're not
sure.
keeping track.
I'm older and sure, but whatever. But I'm saying that in the world of like having some sympathy for people, I don't know, there's different sides of it. Some people launch themselves into that, want to be 24/7 in the heart of the conversation, and then they get knocked down because they won't shut up.
Yeah.
It's like some people, and then there's like people, I start with the, my reset or default position is like, who really cares what I want to say about anything? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I can't dissect politics. I can't like judge somebody in pop culture. Like, in a way, like I have enough humility to realize, like, because we'll go to red carpets and people will be like, I don't know, like they want a hot take on John Gruden, let's say, or something. I'm like, that's terrible, but I'm not going to like figure it out right here. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's like, that's awful. And he had to go. Yes, that's true. But after that, like, I don't know, like, so in a way that like the culture wants you to do that, or in the way that some people in the spotlight want, are judged that way. I don't envy that.
Yeah.
I remember Tony Hale when we first started on the show. He was talking about like being recognized. He's like, it's a very weird thing, and eventually you do get over it, you get past it. But like, you start noticing that people recognize you, and then you start looking for people to recognize you, and it's a weird shift when that happens. And then there's a shift where you then just go back to trying to not notice it, or like recognizing when it does happen. But like, I can get why people like they get like a little hit of people recognizing them, being like, well, I'm just going to chase that at all costs.
But
like,
do you engage with that? Do you engage with your celebrity? Obviously, people love you that listen to this, let's say.
Yeah,
do you engage with them?
I try my best. It's hard for me. I have a very strong introverted side. But I'm like right in the middle. So like, I like going out. I like being social, but I'm like an introverted socialite. And so the thing about reality TV is you're very much known for who you are. Like, your name, it's your actual likeness. You're not necessarily even playing a character.
Yeah.
You're playing a character of yourself. And so at the height of it, you can be very much, you like Tony mentioned, you can feel it and see it. And I get very awkward at times or self-conscious. And there are moments where, you're like, oh fuck, what did I say? Did I do something, or was I nice? Or you always try to be, and you get in your head a lot. I have,
and there is that thing, like stand-up comedians, I'm assuming, deal with this quite a bit. But like, we have the ability to hide behind characters. We have the ability to hide behind that. But when you are like, but when it is like, when you're known as yourself, then it's sort of like the separation can be hard. The separation can be like, oh, well, this is the public version of me that I sort of have to keep up. And then there's just like I don't want to talk about this. But you know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Yeah, no, totally. It's something I've always struggled with. I've never been good at it, but at the same time, I have embraced it. And I've, before I was ever on a reality TV show, I sold software in Chicago. And I quit that and came out here and took a UCB class and was like, I'm going to see if I can do something with this, not totally knowing what I wanted to do, but I wanted to work hard and dive into it and do the work and see what would happen. So it's kind of like I wasn't good at it and I'd be awkward, but there is a drug aspect of it. Like you said, like there are times you catch yourself looking, and being super hyper aware. And then you ask yourself, like, am I looking because I'm being self-conscious, or am I looking because my ego is searching for validation of some kind? It's like a really weird thing.
I'm not going to say that COVID only affected me.
Okay.
All right. That would be a ridiculous thing to say.
Okay.
But
when you are recognizable, you'll go into coffee shops sometimes, and some people are like, oh, hey, I really like that show you're on. Can we buy you a cup of coffee? They're like, yeah, that's awesome. It's like a great thing. And then COVID comes along, you got to wear masks. First, you can't even leave your house. And then you got to wear a mask when you go into a coffee shop if it's open. And they don't recognize you from a TV show.
Did you find yourself like pulling it off and holding it down for a 3-second count? Just in case?
I mean, like I should like come up with a way to do it. I'm just saying, like, I know that I know that COVID did not affect me only, that I was not the most affected by this. I'm just saying that, like, when we're talking about the people that were most effective, I feel like I'm up there.
Why don't you just get a photorealistic mask that just continues your face
The
outside?
Proportions never work. I tried.
Doesn't work?
The proportions never work.
Did you ever just
That
dress
is a
up
bummer,
as John?
man.
Yeah.
Do you have a therapist you can deal with this?
I have 2 therapists.
All right, you should bring this. This is a tough
I talked to both of them about it. They both didn't agree.
Do you really have 2
Really?
therapists?
No, I don't.
That'd be amazing. Like
I just go to whichever one tells me that I'm right.
Listen, you're not telling me what I want to hear.
I have one for my celebrity Matt Walsh, and then I have one for my real person Matt Walsh.
In prepping for this interview, I was Googling you guys, and there is another popular Matt Walsh.
I know.
Oh,
who
yeah.
just happens to be a very divisive right-wing conservative.
Yeah.
Famously wonderful guy, other Matt Walsh.
And I don't have to get into your politics, but I could only assume that
No, we have
you didn't
nothing
necessarily had
very little
anything in common
our
with this
worldview.
guy. And yet, what is the rise of this divisive culture that we're in? Have you intersected?
We've never intersected. I've never engaged. I have been mistaken for him on social media.
Yeah, have
I'm
you
like,
gotten like weird DMs being
people are
like, "Fuck you, man.
fuck you, man, leave him alone," or whatever? Because he is a provocateur and he says what I would consider to be like ignorant things to provoke people.
Yes,
I think. And so, but I've never engaged him, and it is a little weird. And I don't know, like in some ways, he is a bigger celebrity than me because he does trend on Twitter and he's like, people are all over him. So,
and he's pushing his name in a way, like as an actor, you don't necessarily do, like kind of we just talked about. You kind of hide behind the character sometimes.
Yeah.
And he's more.
So I don't know that there's necessarily confusion, but there is another Matt Walsh. Yeah. I don't know that I'm confused for him other than people might react. They might see
I was just
something.
more curious if you ever like a random story or random DM where someone like was wanted to DM him or criticizing you, talking to the wrong guy or
but I have had like hate on like social media a little bit, and I'll clarify it when I see it. But I'm not super active on social media either, so like whatever.
Okay. You are heavily involved in a foundation, the name escapes me, forgive me, but it's about having more LGBTQ literature and books.
My wife started a charity. Must be in the press release.
Yeah.
My wife has a charity.
We have a very strong LGBTQ community to listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really cool thing.
It is a cool
awareness
thing.
and
It is a cool
representation is important. And I was just curious how you got involved in something like that.
Well, I'm a board member, and we have our oldest son, Jude, is gay. He told us he was gay when he was like 11 or something, and it was wonderful and also very normal, like whatever.
Sure.
And somewhere around that, my wife met a gal, Keiko, and she and Keiko started this idea that they would put books in public schools, which librarians at public schools love free brand new books. So they're already on the right side of learning. And they're stories where the heroes aren't your typical hero, or they like sort of are more in the spectrum of like LGBTQ, or they're just like different heroes, you know what I mean? And so what it does is like it gives free books to schools, public schools, not private, which are starving for new books. And it also, when kids read those books, kids who feel different feel okay once they see that hero. And they're young, you know, they're for elementary kids. And then the kids who aren't dealing with that perhaps are a little more like in tune with it, and perhaps more, I don't know if tolerance is the right word, but they've sort of like, they can recognize it and say like, I think I have a cousin who's like that or something. You know what I mean?
They're more inclusive.
More inclusive, yeah.
Where they get to be the hero.
Yeah.
If, you know, because you as a kid, you think you read these stories, and if you could find something about yourself that you identified with a character, you could be like, I could be that guy.
Absolutely.
Or girl. And now that you have
so
LGBT,
there's kids who read those books and feel, let's say, before they read a book like that or see a movie like whatever, there's no one like me where I'm from. You know what I mean? They feel that. And then a book makes it a little easier to know like, oh, there's others people like me. As well as kids who don't deal with that. They sort of like, oh, wow, that's neat.
Because a kid, like a feeling can make you feel outside the box, so to speak. You know, and I have a sister who came out not too long ago. It took her till she was 18, and I grew up in a very Christian conservative household. My parents have very much progressed and evolved in a way that when she came out, it was a really positive thing. But 15 years ago, if you would have said, hey, you're going to have a child who's gay, I would have been like, oh, one home mom and dad are going to handle that one. You know, like, and beautifully, they've done a really great job. But you talk about like, you know, when talking to my sister, like how she felt, you know, and in that feeling of, are my feelings okay? I think it's really cool to acknowledge that it is okay at such an early age.
It is. And obviously, if you keep a big part of yourself quiet, like it can turn into trauma, or like worst case, kids start harming themselves because they don't understand why they have to be this way.
And your son came out at 11. That's
very young age, yeah.
That's pretty young, is it?
I don't know.
Maybe not as much anymore. I don't know.
I don't know the stats, but it wasn't really a thing. He was just always curious that way. And I think mom and dad were already ahead of that in a way, and it was all fine. And so far, so good.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you involved in?
Are you doing anything?
What are you doing for the world other than trying to get a free cup of coffee?
Well, you say that that's a bad thing. You say that that's a bad thing. Like I do so much good for the world when I take that free cup of coffee.
Well, you're making someone's day by going.
I'm really just in there. I'm spreading
do you
smiles.
Give them if they buy you the coffee, do you offer a selfie, or are you just like, thanks, man?
No, I tip like what I would have spent on the coffee.
Have you ever offered
so like
a
if somebody
selfie?
gives me the coffee, I just put $5 in the tip jar.
Have you ever offered a selfie?
I do.
I don't know what to do in that situation.
People are fans. I do.
I feel like there is a weird thing where you don't want to be presumptuous and be like, hey, do you want to take a picture?
I'm just waiting for the no.
But also like sometimes people don't want to ask.
Yes.
And so, but usually I leave it up to them.
Yeah.
Usually I leave it up to them because I feel like one time it did happen where somebody was like, hey man, love the show, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh yeah, great. Do you want to take a picture? And he was like, no.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, what the fuck?
I've had that happen and I wanted to die.
Yeah. How do you, I
always say like, hey, do you want to buy me a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you need me to wish you a happy birthday? Do you have a family member I can send a video to? Or?
They're like, no, I don't know. I just recognized you from that thing. I'm on the board of a charity called Friends of Lhasa, which is a public performing arts high school in LA in Koreatown. It uses performing arts as a teaching tool for all subjects, and they have a design, tech, and an acting program. And it's like a severely underfunded LA public school that has a 98% graduation rate. Like the school's incredible. They do really good work. And one of the things I always say about it is it's like a title, like everybody that goes to school is Title I, like that free school lunch, like it's underserved population in Los Angeles. And one of the things that I always talk about when I talk about the charity is that like generally you have heard from the entertainment world that like diversity both in front of and behind the camera is something that matters. But one thing that is one of the big deals about that is that in order for you to have diversity in front of and behind the camera, you have to have people that are trained for that. And so this is a school that trains people, that trains people in acting, design, and tech. And so you're going to have a more diverse workforce, and that is the value in it. And the reason I say that is because you kind of have to quantify in a capitalist way why these things are worth it. They're like, oh, whatever. Like, what is that going to do for the world to teach them about?
If someone wanted to help
performing arts,
fund it, where could they go?
They could go to Venmo at Friends of Lhasa. They could go to friendsoflhasa.org, LAHSA. And there is like
gendernation.org, I think.
You can go on both sites. Actually, there is like, you can donate here, and then you can leave a tip, which is just buy Tim a cup of coffee. So you can also include that in your donation to the charity if you want. And then that money goes directly to me.
Do you
I'll
take it
an
with
Americano
cream,
with oat
sugar?
milk.
Yeah. How do you take your
It
coffee?
just is Americano with some milk. I'm not trying to be fancy. I'm not asking for too much. I'm just asking for you to add $4 to your charitable donation.
Is that cow milk? Just straight up cow milk. You like a cow's milk, or do you like
in
an
some
oat
oat milk every once in a while?
I'm
But straight up.
Midwest Wisconsin. I think I'll always cow milk it.
Really?
I haven't really.
I like a good oat or almond milk.
Oat's the only one that I found that's moved me off the.
Yeah.
I've wanted to go that route, but I can't do it.
You know what? In cereal, it's a no-brainer. You can go almond milk or oat milk.
Really?
I feel like almond's a bridge too far. I feel like I tried it and it didn't work.
Because the
oats,
cereal mixes with it anyways. It
Oats
turns
do-
into a
Dang,
milkshake.
I'm getting some agreement over here.
Yeah.
Here's how I feel about cereal. It's terrible for you.
Yes.
I'm just going to have the milk.
Okay,
Because
you
if
don't
I'm
eat
trying
cereal.
to go healthy, no, I do as like a snack.
Okay.
But if I'm trying to go healthy, just not going to have the cereal. You
Sure.
know? Like if I'm going to Cocoa Pebble it,
Oh
do
my
I really
God.
want
That's
to put
really
do I
bad
really
for
need to
you.
put oat milk in it?
Yeah.
You know, or even it's like, oh, that's a frosted video base, but no, I can't. No, we don't have oat milk. I guess for the lactose intolerant community, I understand that is a need.
Do we need to refer to them as a community?
I don't know.
Do we need to I
Our
know we want
lactose
to be.
intolerant friends,
I'll tell
I
you,
think is what you're supposed to
Every
say.
episode, I'm notified how I leave out some, or I said something or did something, or I'm just trying to acknowledge everyone. And
I saw something recently, which was somebody pointing out that if somebody spends too much time on Twitter because they do a pre-caveat for everything they say, which is I understand that this but I have thought about the next sentence that I'm going to say. And
Oh my
it's
God!
this,
Really?
but there is also I don't know, it went around recently.
no, they're at, and I'm as guilty of that. And I try to say to myself, okay, this is me being more empathetic and me understanding, and at the same time trying to find the balance between empathetic but still being my genuine self and saying what I think and feel while not, offending anyone.
The
But
lactose intolerant community.
the kid lactose
Our
intolerant.
lactose intolerant friends.
Or lactose
That's
intolerant
the
friends.
politically correct
But if
way to
I
say
met
it.
if I met a dickhead who was lactose intolerant,
But
I
who
wouldn't
cares?
want to call him a
Well,
friend.
that's what I'm saying.
I don't want to
Only
call
the
him a friend.
friends. Only the nice ones. You're not
Only-
really trying to service the needs of the mean bully.
Oh,
lactose
got it.
intolerant
Okay.
people.
So we are being excluding when we
Yes.
are being exclusive
If
when
they're
we say
jerks, you're not
Yeah.
catering to their needs.
friends. If you're Jay Cutler and you're lactose intolerant, get the fuck out of
I
here.
don't have the time of day for
I don't have the
finding a
time-
substitute. Honestly, either drink the cream I got or go to the store yourself.
Or go to, you know what, Jay? Get in your goddamn pickup truck and drive to the store and get your own oat milk.
Yeah, smoking Jay Cutler. Put another cigarette in your mouth.
Can't
You
wait
a
to hear from
smoker?
Jay
Have you ever been a
Cutler's people.
smoker?
What?
Have you ever been a smoker?
I've
You ever
never
smoked
smoked a cigarette in my life.
Really? It's fucking
I
cool.
I dabbled in the THC.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm part of that community.
Do you have a good cigar aficionado friends base here on your
Here-
podcast? Are there a lot of cigar people?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
Who knows? Coffee drinkers, though. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Also, I stopped going to. Interesting that you mentioned the coffee. It was the pandemic that I try to find the silver lining in anything, and not that the pandemic was good at all, but I now learned the benefits of home brewing coffee, because prior to that, I'd always walk and get my coffee. LA has some great local
Yeah.
coffee establishments, and I would always just go spend $4 or $5 on a cup of coffee as part of my morning routine. And now I just brew coffee at home, and it's way better.
What you have to do is get on a political satire HBO show. And then when you go to those coffee shops, you're not spending $4. So you brew it home or just go out. It's the same.
I've never been
And
offered.
even if they have a mask sign, take your mask off.
Take your mask
and
off.
go in so they recognize
If
you.
there's like
and
a
then put
city-
it back on like, oh, I forgot.
Or if it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My name's Tim Simons. You just say
Can you
that.
put your mask back on? Sorry, I just wanted you to know it was me.
I just wanted you to know it was me.
yeah.
Did you want a selfie?
Yeah.
No, put your mask on, sir.
Matt, I'd be remiss for my audience to not talk about Father the Bride, of which you are part of the cast.
You're in Father of the Bride?
Yeah.
The
Small part. I play a marriage counselor for Andy Garcia and Gloria Estefan. So I got to do a scene with them, and that was really fun.
Wait, is that real?
Yeah. They're doing a new reboot
Yeah.
of Father the Bride. And it's a Cuban family and a Mexican family getting married.
Not the Steve
reboot,
Martin.
yeah.
one.
No, this is a new one.
okay.
It's a reboot.
Is it out
It's a
yet?
reboot.
Is it out?
No.
Okay.
I don't know when it's coming out, but that's yes.
We're very good at
How-
promoting things.
How is it going to be different? Is it how much of the original in terms of the theme? Is it a totally different storyline? Essentially the same? I mean, I was a big Father of the Bride fan as a child. Father of the Bride 2, arguably
I think
better.
it's about
one of the better sequels. And
I'll have to watch it again. I wasn't super familiar with the first two. I think the first one I saw, but I think it's about the culture clash between like a Cuban family, Andy Garcia's family, and I forget the people who played the Mexican parents. But I think it's about those culture clashing inside the Hispanic community. So I think it's an interesting take. Yeah, and I got to work with Andy Garcia, who's amazing, very nice.
That's so
It's like the
Gloria
original
Estefan,
Father,
the best, like so sweet.
Original Father Bride was just like the clash between one rich family and an even more rich family. Like Steve Martin's character was like owned a small shoe
Oddly
company.
enough, these are both wealthy families.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Too?
One
Okay.
Well, I don't want to ruin anything. I don't know what I can say.
One family kills the other family.
No, one family has a lot more money than the other family.
So
So it's
similar
funny you
in
say
that
that.
way.
Yeah, I guess it is similar. Yeah.
Similar in that way.
Yeah.
And you play a counselor,
Marriage counselor.
not
Yeah.
marriage counselor. It must have been fun.
Oh my God, so fun. I think it was the first thing I did right out of pandemic. I think it was in April or May.
Where'd you
Maybe
shoot
May.
it?
In Atlanta. I was in Atlanta for like only 4 days. Just a couple scenes. But it was really fun to like go back to work. I remember that too.
Yeah.
Gloria Stefan was there?
She was in the scene. Yeah, we did our scene.
What was
Yeah.
cooler, Andy Garcia or Gloria Estefan in terms of being able to work with? Legends, both.
Was either one
I
of them
guess the
smoking?
novelty of Gloria was more interesting because I've met Andy and I worked on Ghostbusters with him, and I've bumped into him at various things occasionally. So and he remembers me. He's very nice. So I think meeting
you're
Gloria,
friends with Andy.
I wouldn't say friends, but he might know my name. He might think I'm the other Matt Walsh. That's why he likes me. I don't know. But
He
the,
knows you're not. Yeah.
the Gloria of it all was very cool, and I did pepper her a little bit just to kind of get her story, and I did do a selfie. I was that guy. I said, "You wouldn't mind if I got a selfie with you," and that was it.
What did she say?
She was delightful. She's like, "Of course,
Oh, that's nice.
I did that with David Beckham.
yeah, why not?
Oh,
Like
yeah,
if you're a
that's
real
cool.
fan, why
Yeah.
not?"
And I did the very thing that I have criticized people of doing with me is that I first told David, my mom and sisters are gonna really like this, and I was like, "What the fuck? I'm asking for me. This has nothing to do with my
Yeah.
mom or sister." But I like discredited like
the importance to you.
I was like,
Yeah.
I don't want a picture with you, David.
Yeah.
in
This
a
is
way.
beneath
This
me.
is like this is for my
beneath
mom,
me.
and I was like, no, this is. I'm sorry. I wanted the picture with you, but I found myself. It was a very meta, self-aware moment for me.
yeah,
I have
that's
a
funny.
friend who is really well known.
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon. Have
Brad
you heard
Pitt?
of him?
I know Matt Damon. Come on.
He's well known. No, I have a friend
Talented
who is
Mr. Ripley.
well known in like the golf podcasting community. He's like well known in like sort
You're
of golf.
like an amazing golfer.
I'm not amazing. I'm okay. I just really
Professional?
like it. I just really like it.
Okay.
And we were, he recently, we were playing together and he was like in the locker room and somebody recognized him. He's a very recognizable guy. He's very funny. He's really personable, really wonderful guy. Somebody recognized him in the locker room and he had like just gotten out of the shower and he was like, "Oh, what's up, my dude?" Like they started talking and then they were like, "Cool." And like they talked for a minute, and then the guy just like kept calling in people like, hey, get in here. Like, so like all of a sudden like 5 or 6
Like,
people.
we're already best friends.
We're already best friends, but like there are moments where it's like, this is not the time.
Yeah.
Like this, like, yeah, like, yes, I'm not saying no, you should never do this, but like also remember the situation, and like in a towel is not maybe not the best
Yeah.
one.
That's even worse than the going for the mid bite of food as dinner is being served.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting your meal. However,
Do you say no? Will
No.
you tell people to wait till after you're
I
done?
don't have the guts.
It's interesting.
Sometimes I'll give the sigh of disappointment. Be like, sure. And like a small eye
Oh,
roll.
that's devastating.
I don't know that I've ever been interrupted mid-bite in a meal,
No, I've never been.
but I'd like to think I'd have the wherewithal to go, you know what? When I leave, can we do this when I leave?
I've done that.
Yeah.
I've been like,
'Cause I
can
don't think that's terrible to like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm like really enjoying myself, but I will give you what you want.
Yeah, I've had that happen on a plane. Someone will come up like, hey, in the middle of the plane ride. I'm like, can we just do it when we all get off the plane? So I'm not standing up in the middle of an aisle while everyone's like, who the fuck is this guy and why are you taking
Oh,
a
yeah,
picture?
yeah.
So I have gotten off the plane and I've waited.
I was fortunate enough to work with the amazing Jessica Lange on a movie that didn't turn out so great, but we flew back from Spain to America first class, and somebody, as she was like knocking out, she's getting her rest and long distance flight, and somebody's like ting ting taps her on the shoulder, and she like kind of wakes up, and I think she might even have the sleep thing, getting ready to go down, and the person said, "Oh my God, I love you. Can I get a picture?" And she's like, "Oh my God, no." And I so respect her.
It was like,
oh my God, no.
well, she did it in such a way
And
where
then
it
she
was
went
like,
plink, put the things down in like headphones, and she's right. She's right. Like, come on, no. And also she's Jessica Lange. Like, give her some space.
yeah, it's Jessica Lange. I don't feel like I have that clout to say no.
Yeah, but there are opportunities where you meet someone and you have to risk the shame of being a fan because you kind of want to like get a relic of it.
Yeah.
Even though I don't look at a picture of somebody I took with them ever, I might send it to a friend, or like you say, my sister loved. I remember one time I was being in LA, I moved out here, and I stumbled into a room with John Cryer, who played Ducky in Pretty in Pink, which is my sister's favorite movie. And at some point I pestered him, and God bless him, he was so nice, and he left her this fun message on her answering machine, or voicemail, not answering machine. And it was so sweet of him. But in retrospect now, I'm like, I bet I was kind of hammering him to do that. Like, that's kind of aggressive. And I kind of felt like, I bet I was not a good fan in that situation. But he was so gracious. He was so gracious.
I think it just depends on how you approach it. If you are gracious and thankful and asking, you usually get the graciousness in return. I think there's an awkwardness when people ask where I think the mistake sometimes people make, and I can tell they don't mean it, but there's like, I want you to think that I'm at your level. I don't want you to think I'm a fan, and in doing so, I'll be offensive. Like, I don't even care, like whatever, but like, do this thing, just do it. Hey, can you just? And they'll like order you, and I don't think they're trying to be rude, but it comes across as very dismissive, as opposed to the story you told. It's like, hey man, I am acknowledging that I'm asking for something, and he's just like, you know what? Because everyone likes to help someone. And you just if you make someone feel like you're gonna make their day, it's much easier to want to do something for them.
And how hard is it to be, if someone likes what you do, so they walk into an interaction where they appreciate what you do, and all you really have to do is say, "Why, thank you."
Yeah,
like that's not a hard interaction to have.
Yeah, that makes it
on the
easier.
celebrity side or on the fame side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I get really bad because I just have like I can be very honest, and when I see the other side when they're trying to not be gracious or whatever, I'll have a way of calling it out, and I need to let it go. But like sometimes I'm just like, really, your mom? Is it because you haven't watched? And I'm like, aren't you that? And so
that's okay.
The
though.
only celebrity my mom has ever cared about is Albert Brooks, and she doesn't really care who I meet or who I talk to or who I work with. It always comes down to, do you think if when I'm in LA we might run into Albert Brooks? That's the only person she cares about.
That's amazing.
That's probably for the best, though.
It is kind of great. It is kind of great.
Well, I want to bring it back to Veep before we wrap up. Obviously, that show has so many comedy legends in it, and then you have Julia, you have Tony. Obviously, you two as well. Tony and Julia come from other popular shows like Seinfeld and Arrested Development. Were you guys fans of those shows, or were there a lot of conversations about like when they were on set about them reminiscing about those shows? And then I'm also curious about the improv, if at all. There's so many improvisational people on that. Were you guys pretty much on script, or how much of it were you guys just kind of playing around, see what worked, and were you able to take some credit for what seemed to be brilliant writing?
So when it came to the first question, I was a fan of both of those shows, and there was like a learning thing in like, especially when it came to Arrested, where I have watched that show so many times. I know every little moment and every little joke, and I would talk to Tony. He's like, "What were you guys thinking? Like, because like this seemed to set up this, and it seemed to set up this," and he was like, "Honestly, I didn't know. None of us knew. It was chaos." Like, so there is that thing of like the things that you think everybody is so like thought out so purposely and put everything in place, and they were just tapping these dominoes that fell. Like some of it was planned, but a lot of it was accident. Like a lot of it, I do feel like a lot of genius is found by accident.
Yeah, if you're being completely honest. Like, you can be pompous and take credit for everything, but the fortune, the lightning in a bottle of anything is this, you're a little lucky, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like being fans of both Tony and of course of Julia going in, I think in other situations, honestly, if they were different people, it might have been intimidating, but they were very like Julia like set a very welcoming tone from the top, or Mando sent a very welcoming tone from the top. So it felt very collaborative early on.
That's cool.
And very supportive early on.
Yeah, because I would see how that could be intimidating.
I mean,
if it was otherwise. Yeah.
Even with that, I was very intimidated.
Yeah, I think I wasn't like a super fan of either show, but I knew Tony and I bumped into each other in New York because we were both like commercial actors back in the day. So we're sort of the same like generation of youngsters coming out. And then Julia, I just felt like was already sort of a comedy icon, like beyond that show. I just feel like she's very respected. So Julia, I was definitely intimidated by, but I never felt the urge to like go through Seinfeld episodes with her because I hadn't seen a bunch. So it wasn't like a fan of that show,
Okay.
But I did have obviously very hyper like reverence for Julia for whatever reason.
Yeah, this is iconic.
Just going in like pre-Veep, like
I mean, I was more like, I get to interview guys who worked with Julia.
yeah.
That's there. And when it came to like, there was a fair amount of improvisation, but it was mostly, we had a rehearsal process that not a lot of other shows have.
How so?
That like we would show up, before the pilot, we showed up to film 9 days early. We did costume fittings, we did all the normal stuff, but then we would just go into a boardroom in the hotel we were staying in, and we would just rehearse. We would read the scenes, talk
Put
about
them on their
them,
feet.
put them on their feet, try to add new things. Well, what would, like Armando might say, like, well, what would happen if in this situation there were reporters badgering her with questions while she's trying to fix something? So we would then just play reporters in a scene. Like if it was a scene between Tony and Julia, we would like just Walsh and I and Reed, we might just play reporters and try to throw things out at them, try to trip them up to see what came out of it.
And I think we were encouraged in a very wonderful way, which is so rare, to take ownership of those characters through Armando and through Julia. I think we were encouraged to make them our own. And I think like the Brits always impressed me because they could dissect our garbage culture and our political structure and our history. Like they're just so much smarter seeming. And, but I think what they wanted, a little zhuzh was the vernacular, like the way we would phrase things, the way like Jonah might say something, or way Mike, like for these voices to emerge and the rhythms of those voices. I think Arm and the writers were very game for that, to like take shape before them and play with that.
Yeah, and I feel like you saw that as the show evolved, and it was really...
Well, that's like storylines too. Yeah, absolutely. Like it did evolve. And I think we said just recently we were talking about the show. I don't know that from day one they knew where that show was going on season 7. Like I think it was just a ride in many ways.
The ending credits of the show almost kind of had its own kind of special feel, something you looked forward to. Is that something you guys knew or started from the beginning? Or once you realized it became a thing, did you find yourselves trying to like do more improvisation with those moments? Or were they just fine moments while you guys were shooting to make a like an outro out of it?
I think there was always a sense, because that actually came from Armando's previous show in the UK, The Thick of It. They had that sort of that credits roll scene, and usually it was meant to sort of give you a sense of feeling of lived in, that like when the show was ending it still continued on.
It was great.
Like it never ended up on like a button. And I think just as the show went on, the story got more and more dense, and then all of a sudden it was like you just needed the time in the
real
credits.
estate.
You needed the real estate to actually like still tell the story, so like major information was still coming out in like some of those credit roll scenes. But I think in the first couple years, there was sometimes a sense of like what the tone would be in those scenes. So not that you would play into it, you would still play the scene, but you knew that those ones might be a little bit more quiet, a little bit more conversational maybe.
Yeah, and I think keeping it live, like for whatever reason, in the first 2 seasons, let's say, we were always keeping it live because you didn't know when the camera was going to find you. And then we would also do longer page chunks, like a play, because we enjoyed it, and we would follow Selena through a hall, and then we'd go to her office, and then you'd leave the scene, but you'd come back in 30 seconds, and it was like a play. And as a result of that, I think some of those things that we captured, you never knew if you were going to be on camera, so you just kept behaving. I remember you were just pointing out on one episode where Jonah makes coffee because he's kissing ass to the president. He just knew that like he might be on camera, Tim, and so he's just like, I guess I'll make coffee now.
I just actually had to go over and just like, well, I have to prepare the actual coffee.
It was like theater in the round, and that also is a wonderful. It's like hitting the boards as a young comedian. It's like getting hours. It's like you really in this character, and you can't drop the character until they say cut. You know what I mean? That's great training, and that's wonderful experience because I think it benefited all of us.
Yeah.
And there was a great thing that happened that like sort of as we got a little more comfortable. I know that this happened for me, and I would say that it happened for you too, is that every once in a while, like it was a very collaborative atmosphere and you could add stuff. And after a little while, I think like I know I did this, that I would just ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Like if I had an idea, you would just be like, we all trusted each other enough. It's like, I can go over to Video Village and pitch this joke and take a couple minutes trying to explain it, or I can just try it in this take. And if it works, they'll be like, great, keep it. And if it doesn't, they'll be like, don't do it this time. You know what I mean? But there was like a trust that you could try something without them being like, you know what? You just fucked up this take. You just fucked up that whole scene. You threw everybody off. And like, why'd you do that? You know? You didn't have my permission to do that. We just
a very kind of creative, welcoming atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that must have played a big role in how the show evolved and continued to be so successful.
Yeah.
At what point when you guys were filming the show, was there ever, like, did you think, oh, this is going to be big coming in, you know, Julia's our lead, it's going to be awesome? Or at some point we're like, holy shit, this is one of the best shows on TV right now. Like, did you ever have a holy shit moment?
I always felt excited and psyched that the show would be funny because of Armando. I liked the Steve Coogan show, Alan Partridge, and Arm was a part of that. So I was super psyched of his like history, and I'd seen In the Loop, I believe. So I was very excited about that. And obviously working with Julia, and then the fact that there was like some like looseness to it, like the realness played to, you know, I like a little bit of improv, like Tim saying, you can throw stuff in and take chances. So I always felt fairly confident that it would be funny because of the quality of the people making it. But I didn't know the crossover to who would care about it or how many people would care about it or whatever.
Yeah, because sometimes they take on a life of its own. Like we talked about Arrested Development.
Yeah.
It was never fully appreciated until I think it was like off the air. I mean, it was accredited and won awards, but they became a whole new level of popular after the fact.
I kind of assumed that we would be a niche comedy in that way of like, I always assumed that people would find it and people would think it was funny, but I actually did not think it would cross over in the way that it did. Not that I have any sort of like, you know, I don't have any sort of.
But when you're a part of something, it's natural to wonder or think or consider, and like you had.
Well, here's a hypothetical. What do you ever wonder if our podcast will be bigger than the Veep show? Second in Command, our rewatch podcast.
I think it already is. I think it already
could it eclipse the fame of
I mean, like, look, I can't go anywhere. I get mobbed. I get mobbed.
Just from the
show. The
podcast?
show dropped
For
yesterday.
one
Second in Command dropped yesterday. I haven't. My phone has been just buzzing.
So this is people
all
watching
night.
the video.
You
if
can't.
they recognize you.
You're coffeeed out.
I am
You can't
coffee
even
out. I
show
had
up
7
to-
cups of coffee before I got here. I just kept saying yes because you never know when the last
You don't
one's
want
gonna
to offend
happen.
anyone, but
Avoid
all these
Silver
cups
Lake,
of
man.
coffee.
That's coffee country.
I
Avoid
just,
Silver Lake.
I was just dumping them out of the car window. You know what I mean? I was just throwing the cup like just out on the street. Somebody else is going to clean that up, not me, because I'm on a very famous podcast.
Don't want any more coffee.
I don't want any more coffee. I don't want any more of your texts of congratulations for being the biggest podcast in America. Thank you. I know I'm on the biggest podcast in America. You don't need to tell me that. I'm the most famous man that's ever lived.
Well, Veep is a very rewatchable show. It's the type of show you put on late at night and watch and pick up jokes that you didn't
Yes,
watch the
that's
first
true.
time.
Yeah.
And now that you guys have your show, I think are going to be the biggest podcast.
And I think if there are people in your audience that are like comedy nerds, I think like one of the things that we do is we break down jokes. I do think we do really go into sort of like what was like the creation. How did a joke change? How did it evolve? Where was it in the table read? Where did it end up? You know, where did that moment come from, or what makes that moment work? I think that's another interesting thing that we're doing.
Also,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, it does. It builds out a fuller world around each episode. So it's like the full story of, hopefully, if we do a good job, it's the full story of the whole 7 or 10 years we spent together. But great information on how jokes and storylines and things like that evolved.
And you also
And also societal context. We try to so if you remember 2013, this was going on in DC. So we try to provide those contextual clues as well.
and bring in experts as well. You had a memory expert on your
Tons
first
of
episode.
experts. Yeah. We'll have more experts.
People love experts on this show, so
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You brought us on as fame experts.
Veep experts,
We're
life
very famous.
life experts,
Free coffee
coffee
experts. Yeah.
experts.
And so, yeah, I think fame experts is fair too. I agree with Tim. We are
Thank
fame
you.
experts.
Guys, it's been a real pleasure having you. Before I let you go, we like to play just a real simple game with our guests to learn even more about them. It's called Do You Know Me?
Okay.
You guys are down to play?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Can I pass or I have to play?
No one's
No one's passed. Sorry, go ahead.
passed, but you
Do I
can.
get a pass? Can I say next question?
Yeah. Do you know me with Matt and Tim? Here we go.
That was really good. I liked your introduction.
I like to
your
go, like,
intro
game
voice.
show.
I
I'm
like
trying- you know,
that.
I'm trying
I
to
like
get
Where
game
that.
was
show.
that energy the
Yeah.
rest of the interview? I feel like you just came alive for that moment.
Now I'm really self-conscious.
No,
Should we
no,
start
no,
over?
you have a nice
Should we start
conversational
over? We can start.
tone.
The,
But just like all of a sudden, you're just like fucking right there.
you guys are intimidating.
Oh,
That's not true. We are
Okay.
very famous though. And that actually, yeah, I suppose that. I mean, we are on the biggest podcast in the United States.
Tim dressed for a round of golf, by the way. I must say, like
I have a tendency to forget what
the
I'm
video
going
cast
to.
of it all.
Well, there was one time I was in Austin and I had to go on this like NPR show, and I was like, okay, it's NPR, so
Radio.
I was radio, right? So I dressed like it was for radio, and I was so hungover. I have never looked more like a hunk of shit in my entire life. And it turns out that this was on camera, and I looked like an absolute turd. And the host, who I have run into 2 or 3 times in like the 7 years since it happened, will never not bring it up that I looked like absolute shit. And so that happened again today. I kind of forgot that there was going to be a video aspect of this.
I
You look fine.
think you look great.
Thank you. You're being
I don't-
too nice.
I'm wearing.
You look great.
Don't
you
even
look
know
great.
what I'm
You look
wearing.
fashionable. You have cool shoes. You have cool
Laces,
shoelaces.
Yeah.
I
Little,
I was
pop.
gifted these shoes a while back, and I don't feel totally comfortable in them. And if I'm being honest, but I was compelled by my girlfriend to wear them.
I think they look great. I think you're doing really well. You got a whole great thing going on. I look like somebody dragged me through a blind closet.
You look fine.
Thank you.
I don't know what a blind
Do you golf
closet
at all?
I don't
too?
I do.
either.
You do.
I'm not as good. He's probably better. I mean, pretty much. He's more
Because
dedicated.
one thing I actually related.
What is your handicap?
12.
Oh my God, you're so much better than me.
I'm not
I'm
good
like a
at golf.
24.
I don't love golf, and actually, the line you give in Old School
I hate golf.
is something I really resonated with. Where I feel like I'm not allowed in my community of
You
white
can
dudes
hate
from the
golf.
Midwest to hate golf.
You can hate
I was like, fucking hate golf.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, I feel seen.
Can you do the intro again?
Do You Know Me with
Yes, that's so good.
Matt and Tim. Does Matt and or Tim know what the largest state in the United States is?
Alaska.
Okay. Can either Tim or Matt name The Last Bachelor on ABC?
No, not me.
No.
Pass.
A guy who was on The Bachelor ran a contracting company, and then
Yes. He also worked on our back door.
Yeah. And then he was on The Bachelor, and then after The Bachelor, he went back to his contracting company, and he did the renovations.
Who was that?
His name is
Juan.
Juan Pablo?
Juan Barbieri. He's great. He's a contractor in the Los Angeles area. If you need a contractor, he's really lovely. He was also on The Bachelor. So I know he wasn't the No, he was on The Bachelorette.
Okay.
So no, I guess the short answer is neither one of us know that question.
Okay,
Were
that's
you
fine.
The Bachelor?
I was. Yeah.
Whoa.
Has Matt or Tim ever been an unpaid intern?
Unpaid intern. I don't know.
I have been a barely paid intern. No, I have been an unpaid intern. I have both been an unpaid intern and a barely paid intern. The least money I've ever made as an intern was $50 a week.
I guess
40
I never
full-time job?
interned.
Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
think I ever interned anywhere.
$50 a week.
Yeah. I mean, they gave you like food and a place to stay, but you made $50 a week. And I was a pretty heavy smoker.
What was the job?
I was working at that was the theater at Monmouth in Monmouth, Maine. It's a wonderful theater, Shakespearean theater. I grew up watching plays there. It's a really unbelievable place to work. I loved it. And they gave you food, and you're out in the middle of nowhere performing Shakespeare, and you get paid $50 a week. And I was a heavy smoker, and all that money just went to, I got food and a place to stay from them, and I got cigarettes from the $50 a week, and that was it.
You no longer smoking?
I'm no longer smoking now. No.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You smoked your way through $50 a week?
I mean, easily.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's aggressive. Back then, probably get a lot of cigarettes for that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was packing a half, 2 a day.
Jesus.
I was doing it.
Yeah.
I was doing it.
Can Matt and Tim drive a stick shift?
Yes.
Yes, 100%.
It's a lost art. I don't think that.
Yeah, it's probably diminishing vehicles that go out with stick shifts.
I think
right?
now if you want to buy a stick shift, you have to try to
Yeah, you have to
go out of
order
your
it.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has Matt and Tim ever had a crush on a friend's sibling?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
there was a girl in post-college era that I had a crush on that I knew her sister.
I mean, I guess this is the time to tell my friend Nick that, like, I always thought Emily was cute when I was growing up.
Okay.
Older sister. Yeah, there you go.
All right, Emily.
Oh,
She's
she's married.
married.
She's got kids now.
Okay.
Would Matt or Tim rather go bungee jumping or skydiving?
Oh,
Bungee.
fucking hell.
If
Really?
I had to. I don't know if I'll do
Have you done
either.
either?
No.
Why
If I had
bungee
to.
jumping?
Oddly, I feel like it's safer. Isn't that crazy? I feel like I'm less likely to die.
Skydiving?
I think you're.
Bungee.
Okay.
Run the numbers.
I don't know if
somebody.
this will change your
Okay.
answer, but bungee jumping, you're going from 0 to 100. So the inertia or the sensation of your stomach dropping is there. When you skydive, there's none of that because you're already going 200 miles per hour
Oh, gotcha.
and you're just changing direction. So it just feels like you're flying rather than falling. And it's a lot of fun. I've never bungee jumped, but I support skydiving.
I'm legitimately
I'd like
terrified
one of
of
you.
heights, so I truly don't ever want to do either of those.
Yeah.
Have either of you been stood up on a date?
Stood up?
Yeah. Full on, just no show.
No.
No.
But let's also throw in the caveat, like, I'm also very, like, odd looking, and so I didn't, like, go on a lot of dates. You know
Well,
what I
you're-
mean? Like, I'm not like
Not
a...
really. You're
I
tall
kind
and
of look
handsome.
like a bird of prey, like kind of a muskratty bird of prey. So, like,
Muskrat.
There are a lot
What the
less
hell
more
are you talking
fortunate
about?
looking people in
there,
this
no,
world.
for sure. But I'm just saying, like, I wasn't like, like going out on like a lot of dates.
Okay.
So I've never been stood up. No.
Have either did you guys fail your first driving test?
No, I passed it.
No, I passed it.
I
Yeah.
failed first time. You 4 times?
4 times?
Was it the written or the driving part? Wow, you just got nervous.
I was an automatic fail because I was at a stop. I was at a 4-way stop intersection where the other one didn't have the stop sign. So I was like, "Oh, it's time to go." There's a car coming, and they're like, "I almost got in an I basically almost got in an accident.
Oh shit! Wait, in a blizzard you passed?
Wow.
Oh wow. Yeah, you were good at that point.
It's funny.
Have either of you ever been stoned around your parents?
Yeah,
Yes.
bunch of times.
Nice. Nicely done. Matt, Tim, it's been a real pleasure having you. It's been a ton of fun. Really, thank you for coming on. And please let everyone know where they can listen to Second in Command, your new podcast, the most popular podcast.
The most popular podcast. I mean, everybody already knows where to find it because it is the most popular podcast.
If you're living under a rock, where can you find it?
You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts.
Wherever you listen to podcasts. Cast Media.
It's put on by Cast Media. Second in Command, a Veep rewatch podcast. Apple, iTunes,
Probably
Spotify?
on YouTube somewhere.
We're on YouTube somewhere.
I watched it on YouTube.
Oh, you did. You can watch it on YouTube.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like we're pretty affable, wonderful guys.
Yeah,
We have a good relationship.
Good on the gram. You guys got some Instagrams.
Yeah, I'll throw out some grams.
I'll take the compliment. I'm not good on social media, but I'll take the compliment.
It's a nice family-friendly environment on your Instagram.
Good. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I don't.
It's less embarrassing than mine.
I'm not active. Yeah. Embarrassing? Did you put embarrassing things up?
I put things up that I would never put up had I never been on a reality TV show, and now use my social media as a way to, make money and promote my business. And sometimes I try to make it fun and not to, but anytime you go back like 6 months, you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You're cringing at yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
It's fine. Like, no judgment, I guess, but I definitely would not be doing it otherwise.
But that's sort of normal. Like, I think it is necessary in this day and age to promote yourself. You need to be on social media.
Yeah. And I try to expand my creative comfort zone and do things and judge myself less, but I digress.
We're all a work in progress.
We're a work in progress.
Except for me, except for Walsh and I. We're doing great.
Congratulations.
We've fully evolved. Yeah. This is the best it's going to get.
I have nothing left to learn.
Yeah, no, truly.
I have no innovation, no evolution left. I've reached the highest form. What happens when you've reached the highest form of human being?
I mean, I think it's like
you turn into light? Like
I think you turn into light.
Infinite light?
You're just everywhere.
Lightness and air?
Yeah.
That's why we didn't turn the lights on. It's just...
This is all being powered by how much we've learned.
All from Matt. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening, guys. Don't forget to send your questions at asknick@castme.com. Cast with a K for your Ask Nick episodes. And we will be back on Monday. Hey guys, thanks for watching, but before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any future videos like our Monday's Ask Nick for your favorite relationship stories and advice, and our Tuesday Bachelor recaps. See you next time.